This is Heidi Estrin from the Book of Life podcast, and before we start today's episode, I want to let you know that I'm about to celebrate my 10th year of podcasting. To mark the occasion, the Book of Life is joining Patreon. Whether you've been listening since 2005 or just started today, I hope you find these interviews with creators of Jewish books, music, films, and websites to be interesting, valuable, maybe even inspiring. And I hope you'll be moved to respond by becoming a Book of Life patron at patreon.com/bookoflife. At Patreon, you can pledge as little as 50 cents a month to support the show, and every level of support comes with its own set of thank you rewards. Your small monthly donations will help pay the hosting and subscription fees that make the Book of Life possible. Any extra funds will buy materials for our sponsoring library, such as books, CDs, and films that may end up inspiring a future podcast interview. The Feldman Children's Library at Congregation B'nai Israel of Boca Raton, Florida, has always supported my podcasting efforts, and I'd like to return the favor by bringing in some funding to support the library. Please think about it and check out the rewards packages at patreon.com/bookoflife. Welcome to the Book of Life, a show about Jewish books, music, film, and web. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. Kutsher's was a kosher Catskills resort that was a Jewish vacation destination for 100 years. I spoke to documentary filmmaker Ian Rosenberg about his loving tribute, Welcome to Kutsher's, when he came to Delray Beach, Florida for the film's opening. Ian Rosenberg, thank you for meeting with me.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about your film, Welcome to Kutsher's. And first of all, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to do a documentary about Kutsher's?
Well, this is a film that was created by me and my wife, Carolyn Lasko. We've both done documentaries separately and now together. And in 2002, we went up to Kutsher's for the first time. We were both from the Midwest and hadn't grown up with a Catskills tradition. Carolyn asked me, would you like to go to the Catskills this weekend and stay at this resort? And I said, yes, but we don't live in 1960, so is that really possible? And she said, yes, there's a resort, it's still open, let's try it. We went, and we had such a fantastic time. We thought we were maybe going to just sort of enjoy it ironically, but it felt so special to be there, and the people were so amazing. Many of the people who are in our film, Celia Duffy, the ice skating instructor who taught me how to ice skate, and Joe Hing Lo, who's an art instructor who I took a still life class with, and Justine Rosenberg, who Carolyn took a makeup class with. We wanted to not only capture the living resort, but all of the great stories of the individuals who were there. And it felt pretty magical that we could do a piece about the Catskills, not to talk about the history and have it be retrospective, but actually capture a glimpse of this world before it disappeared. Because even in 2000s, it felt like the end was near. And so we began in 2007. We called up and Mark Kutsher said, oh, are you calling because it's the 100th anniversary? We didn't know that, to be honest, but we said yes, absolutely. And then we took it from there.
But Kutsher's is closed now, isn't that true?
Kutsher's is closed now. The resort was sold to Varia Lifestyle, which is a company owned by Subhash Chandra, who's sort of the Rupert Murdoch of India. He's a billionaire, one of the wealthiest people in the world. And he and his company wanted to turn it into a yoga and Ayurvedic lifestyle wellness center.
So you were lucky to go in time.
Yes. You know, our film had a festival premiere in 2011, and at that time the question that we always got was, well, what's the future of the resort? We said the future is not clear. And so as bittersweet as the closing of Kutsher's was, we are really happy that we could chronicle the history from 1907 through its actual close in 2014.
So beyond evoking nostalgia, what's the purpose of documenting the rise and fall of Kutsher's?
Well, I think besides personal stories and besides the fascinating hidden histories of sports at the Catskills, particularly at Kutsher's with Wilt Chamberlain being a bellhop, and the rise of Jewish American comedy through people like Seinfeld and Sid Caesar and Freddie Roman, to me, the Catskills experience is really the Jewish American experience in a microcosm. It was created out of anti-Semitism. Jews weren't welcome. No Hebrews or nor consumptives were written on many of the advertisements for hotels in the area. They were restricted. This was an immigrant population. It used to be only the very, very affluent would be able to have a vacation. So you have both anti-Semitism and sort of the new rise of the American idea of a vacation. And then as it developed in the heydays in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you have the beginnings of assimilation where Jews are successful and cosmopolitan and really the breeding ground for much of American entertainment culture, and a group of people who wanted to be together but in a cosmopolitan American experience. Kosher, but with international sort of style and glamour. And then as the Jewish Americans became so assimilated, and with the rise of air conditioning and air travel, that they could go anywhere they want, or they had permanent vacations in Florida and LA, that led to the inevitable decline of the Catskills resorts. So I really think that you're not only looking at pop culture, you're looking at the history of the Jewish people through the lens of this over 100-year-old family business.
Wow. So describe some of the things that made Kutcher's special, some of the activities, the celebrities. Talk about that.
Yes. So one of the things that was particularly unique to Kutcher's was their sports tradition. They had an incredible basketball tradition. In the summers, they had a basketball league where they would recruit top talent from high school and colleges to play against other Catskills teams. And one of the people that Milton Kutcher particularly recruited was Wilt Chamberlain. He played basketball at night for exhibition games and was a bellhop during the day. Also, Red Auerbach, legendary Celtics coach, he was their activities director, was Wilt's coach, so he brought in top talent. Actually, he and Wilt sort of butt heads from what we heard, that Wilt wanted to do more bellhopping to get the big tips, and less of the practicing that Red wanted him to do. There's amazing footage in our film of Wilt putting in a suitcase through the second floor window while standing on the grounds outside. They had the Maurice Stokes game, which was a charity game to help support Maurice Stokes, which was sort of gave birth to the NBA All-Star tradition. And then you have, of course, the biggest names in comedy at the Catskills resorts and, of course, at Kutcher's. Mark Kutsher had a real eye for talent. So Sid Caesar in their band, Joan Rivers, Jerry Seinfeld, Freddie Roman, who we have throughout our film. There was always really contemporary, cutting-edge comedy. One of my favorite moments is that Andy Kaufman played at Kutcher's. His parents were longtime guests. He was then into wrestling women from the audience, and he wrestles a woman from the audience, and she says that if he doubles the prize, that she would give it to Hadassah. And he said, why don't you give it all to Hadassah? Because he was doing his sort of crazy belligerent thing then, and wasn't actually a big hit with the audience. But the biggest names, Louis Armstrong played there, Duke Ellington, there was a whole Latin scene. So really the biggest names in contemporary culture were playing at the Catskills, and particularly at Kutcher's.
How did Kutcher's and the Catskills resorts influence the vacation industry? What's their legacy?
The influence on the vacation industry is quite strong. Really, the idea of what Mark sometimes calls the American plan, or the all-you-can-eat style, gave rise very directly to the Club Med all-inclusive resort experience. It was direct creator of the modern cruise ship experience as a middle and upper middle class experience rather than just a luxury liner thing for the elite. And even I think the sort of all-day entertainment is felt at modern resorts and amusement parks like Walt Disney World and other amusement parks. So they revolutionized the vacation industry, and in fact, it's the vacation industry that became their biggest competitors. For a while, it was the rivalry with Grossinger's or the Concord or the Pines that Kutcher's was most engaged in, but what really ended up being their biggest competitor were people who stole their act.
Is there any modern equivalent, or what can vacationers do to recreate that experience of the Catskills resort?
It's hard to know what the modern equivalent of the Catskills experience is. To a certain degree, it's a cruise ship or a Club Med, but that isn't Jewish style and that isn't family run. I think the Catskills experience were a uniquely 20th century phenomenon, both in the way they reflected the Jewish American experience and into sort of the practicalities of what it meant to vacation during that time. I would say that the best way to relive that experience is to get our DVD and to see our film. And that was a lot of what we were trying to do, not only document it for historical purposes, but to really let people have a way of triggering their own memories of that experience and telling their children or their grandchildren and showing them this is what I meant when I talked about those good old days.
When's the DVD going to be available?
The DVD should be available for Memorial Day of 2015, and people can find out about our film and future screenings and the DVD release at kutchersdoc.com, KUTSHERSDOC.com, or emailing us at kutchersdoc@gmail.com, and we'll put you on our mailing list for further information about the film.
Good. You made a separate documentary about Wilt Chamberlain, didn't you?
Yes, after we had our film festival premiere of Welcome to Kutcher's, we were commissioned by ESPN Films to do one of their 30 for 30 shorts series. We had lots of Catskills topics that we batted around with them, but we ultimately settled on the most obvious great topic, which is Wilt Chamberlain Borscht Belt Bellhop. It's the name of our 9-minute epic on Wilt's time in the Catskills, and what was really great was getting to do separate interviews with people who played on the Kutcher's basketball team at that time and were Wilt's teammates. You know, he began a lifelong friendship with the Kutchers. He was very close with his parents, but he said that Milton and Helen were like another set of parents for him, and actually dedicated his autobiography with a dedication to my other parents, and was like an older brother for Mark. And Mady and Karen, Mark's sisters, were among the last people to see him before his untimely death from health problems. It was a fascinating confluence we found of when the biggest future name in basketball met the Borscht Belt.
What's your next film project?
What I think we're uniquely interested in is sort of cultures that are in a microcosm. Carolyn did a documentary called Ashtanga New York, is about a yoga community and a guru who comes from India to New York around September 2001, and what the tragedy meant for this yoga community. I have a documentary that I produced called The World's Best Prom, which is about a prom celebration in the Midwest that's like no other. So I think we need to find another community that's like worlds colliding in a unique microcosm. So we have some ideas, but that's what we're on the lookout for.
Cool. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to talk about?
I think the one thing that I would like to talk about just briefly is about the generosity of the Kutsher family. Mark and Carla, his wife, and Helen, his mother, the second-generation owner, were so generous in letting us tell their story, and it's a uniquely personal story, and we could only tell one version of it, but they gave us total access and no restrictions on what we were going to say or what we were going to show, and that was an incredible gift that we're so appreciative of. Mark has a memoir in progress that we can't wait to read and hope to be able to celebrate in the near future, and just finally that it was a real honor and privilege for us to get to meet and interview and know a little bit Helen Kutsher, who many people call the First Lady of the Catskills. She was just such a truly generous and warm person that you can see how she made Kutsher such a success. This little anecdote I sometimes tell is that when she came to our Lincoln Center premiere, when she was frail but still in good health, and it was a cold January night, and the first thing she said to us as everyone was sort of jostling to try and say hello to her and sort of genuflect before her, the first thing she said to us when we greeted her was, "Are you cold? Can I get you something?" Because Carolyn was wearing a short dress, and so, she could not stop being a caring hostess even when she was being celebrated as the guest of honor. She's a remarkable woman, and we're very glad to have met her and be able to capture a small piece of her wit and stories.
That's great. I like that story.
Thanks.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for speaking with us.
It was my great pleasure. I had a fun time.
If you enjoy the Book of Life podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or a comment on our blog at bookoflifepodcast.com. You can also like our page at facebook.com/bookoflifepodcast, follow us at twitter.com/bookoflifepod, email us at bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 561-206-2473. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida, at cbiboca.org, and is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.